Panic clawed at his throat. He was trapped in his own home, casting a shadow of his former self. Just yesterday, he walked among legends, but now he was in exile. And the reason? His class, the despised thief. Ryoma stared at the wall, disbelief gnawing at his sanity. While his so-called friends basked in glory, he rotted in the darkness of failure. Suddenly, a crimson warning flashed before his eyes. Reality shattered as a colossal behemoth emerged from the void, obliterating everything in its wake. Arrogance whispered that he could win, but the monster swatted him like a fly. Broken and bleeding out, he made one final gamble. With his dying breath, he activated his thief's skill to steal a mythic artifact. He grasped the divine pocket watch, an item capable of rewinding time by 10 years and unlocking the path to a legendary class. Without hesitation, he accepted his fate. Ryoma's consciousness snapped back to his younger body. This time, his growth would be explosive, surpassing every prodigy who looked down on him. He slaughters monsters, dominates dungeons, and devours double the experience points. But to truly grasp this legend, we must rewind to the moment the nightmare began. A trembling man stood frozen, begging his comrade to repeat the sentence that shattered his world. They had built this legacy from nothing. Blood, sweat, and tears took them all the way to S rank. Ryoma couldn't process the betrayal. His companion's eyes were cold as ice. With a voice devoid of mercy, the man repeated the decree. The man barked his name, Akoma Ichinose. The words hit like a physical blow. They were cutting him loose from the glorious sword party. Let's set the stage. 15 years prior, the sky cracked open. Portals materialized across the globe, signaling the end of the peaceful era. These weren't just holes in space, they were gateways to hell. Nightmarish beasts poured out, hungry for human flesh. But humanity wasn't helpless. A select few heard the call of the system. They awakened abilities and leveled up, turning reality into a deadly RPG. These awakened warriors were the shield of mankind. They were the hunters. Back in the past, a young Ryoma stared at the glowing interface, deciphering the arcane text of his awakening. The choice of a lifetime lay before him. Most coveted the mage class, but it was a trap. Slow casting times and complex controls led to a graveyard of rookies. Ryoma hesitated. One wrong move here would dictate his entire future. He made his choice. He selected the thief class. He needed speed. He needed agility. Above all, he needed to grind experience and power up faster than anyone else. It was a masterstroke. His strategy paid off in spades. Experience rained down on him, and he ascended the ranks, earning the title of the Swift Blade. But the world kept crumbling. From a tear in the sky, a magnificent yet terrifying winged beast descended. It was a griffin, an apex predator that dominated the heavens. Ryoma held the front line, risking it all for his country and his planet. He naively believed his loyalty would be returned in kind. That illusion shattered today. Why? Ryoma gasped. But the party leader's patience had evaporated. He looked at Ryoma like he was garbage. Don't play dumb, the leader sneered. You know exactly why. The monsters were evolving into tanky nightmares. Ryoma's daggers were like toothpicks against them, and his support skills useless. Ryoma's knuckles turned white. He clenched his fists so hard his nails dug into his palms, swallowing the scream of rage building in his chest. Speed is obsolete, the leader scoffed. Thieves are relics of the past. A low-level mage can out-damage you in their sleep. It was a forced retirement. The guild had already scrubbed his name from the S-rank roster. They claimed it was mercy, to keep him from dying in the high-tier zones. Desperation seized him. I know I'm not the strongest, Ryoma pleaded, his pride crumbling. But I've bled for this team. Who else can confuse the bosses? Who else stacks poison like I do? Silence stretched between them. The leader's expression didn't soften. At least you've got spirit, he muttered, brushing past him. Keep that up, somewhere else. What does that mean? Ryoma stammered. The leader offered nothing but a pitying, dismissive smirk. You're out, Ryoma. End of story. The footsteps faded away, leaving the thief paralyzed in the hallway of his shattered dreams. Time blurred. Cut to a dark apartment, the air thick with the stench of despair. Empty liquor bottles littered the floor like fallen soldiers. Mountains of trash and overflowing ashtrays painted a picture of a man who had given up. Tears streamed down his face, illuminated by the flickering flame of a lighter. He stared into the void. Being a hunter wasn't just a job, it was his identity. He didn't need fame. He just wanted to believe that his blood and sacrifice mattered. That he mattered. Ash tumbled from his cigarette, landing on the cold floor. "So this is it," he whispered. "This is my reward for saving the world." He was never the chosen one. He knew that. He spent every penny on potions and gear just to keep up, just to be useful. Now he was broke, destitute, stripped of his S-rank status. He was barred from the very dungeons that gave his life purpose. *buzz. His phone lit up with a notification. A headline mocked him: "Glorious sword triumphs in China expedition." They had cleared the palace of Tati, a dungeon the world deemed impossible. And they did it without him. The photo showed them beaming, drunk on victory and champagne. They looked happier than ever. Ryoma froze, his soul turning to ice. He scrolled through the chat logs, reading the world's praise for the team that threw him away like trash. Rumors spread like poison. Some asked where he vanished to, while others sneered that he was kicked out for being dead weight. Seeing the toxic flood of comments, Akoma snapped. Rage boiled over as he hurled his phone against the wall. Why? Why did he ever choose the path of a bandit? He knew he could survive if he just sold his gear. But it wasn't about the money. It wasn't that simple. Memories of his old team flooded back, tearing him apart. He screamed through the tears, his voice breaking. He had sacrificed music, absolutely everything for them. Collapsing to the floor, the crushing truth hit him. He had nothing left. Suddenly, a piercing alert cut through the silence. Akoma froze, his eyes widening in shock. A catastrophe-level warning. An S-rank monster had descended upon the Morima district of Tokyo. Immediate evacuation was the only order. Panic began to set in. The elite Glorious Sword Guild was overseas. There wasn't a single hunter in the city capable of stopping a beast of that caliber. And Akoma, he was no different. Alone, he was powerless against such a threat. Yet his gaze drifted to his equipment pile. Fear gnawed at him, but a spark of resolve ignited. Maybe, just maybe, he could do something. High above, a colossal nightmare clad in natural armor tore through the sky. Akoma stood his ground against the titan. Thank God he hadn't sold his gear yet. This wasn't just any monster. It was Kronos, the space-time dragon. A creature far more terrifying than legends described. Akoma steeled himself, at the very least. This would be a glorious final curtain for his hunter career. Trembling but determined, he declared the start of his last stand. The dragon unleashed a cataclysmic roar, the sound wave alone lifting massive debris into the air. Akoma dashed forward. He kept telling himself, he is a hunter. He only needs to buy time for the civilians to escape until the S-ranks arrive. He launched himself into the air to attack, but Kronos was ready, charging to meet him. The speed was impossible. Akoma watched in horror as his dagger shattered upon impact. He barely twisted his body to dodge. He escaped the direct hit, but the shockwave behind him erupted in a massive explosion. Akoma stared at the devastation, cold sweat drenching his back. The dragon roared again, glaring down at the insignificant human. One step closer meant instant death. He had to go all out. He summoned his double-bladed scythe, Hydra. Steel struck scale, but nothing. Not a single point of damage to the beast. Panic rose in his throat. The monster was immune to poison. Before he could react, Kronos swiped with its massive claws. Relying on pure instinct and speed, Akoma evaded by a hair's breadth, but he knew the truth. He couldn't win this way. Without his bandit-class agility, he would be dead already. Now, he was cornered with nowhere left to run. He had one card left to play. He grabbed his bladed rope, spinning it with desperate momentum. He hurled it at the dragon, the bandit skill, Kleptoclaw, a technique designed to steal items from the target. He prayed to every god that the monster held anything that could turn the tide. His eyes gleamed as the enormous claws descended. The impact was lying amidst the music. Ruins, covered. After a life spent saving others, this was his reward. Dying alone in the rubble. If only he could start over. Suddenly, the Kleptoclaw had worked. Pain wrapped the shadow of frozen, summoning every ounce of remaining strength. He crushed the watch in his grip and screamed his desire to return. The monster's talon pierced his chest. The world went black as his consciousness faded away. Suddenly, loud noises assaulted his ears. What was happening? Akoma snapped his eyes open. He ripped open the curtains. The view outside stunned the former S-rank hunter. Checking with trembling hands, a faint, knowing smile played on his lips. He finally realized that fate had dealt him a second-hand chance to rewrite his destiny. With steel in his eye, on the screen, a grim-faced Akoma watched an expert argued back, stating that monster strength and numbers would only multiply each year. Sending the powerless to fight now was nothing short of a massacre. Akoma glanced at the mysterious watch on his wrist. It really had sent him back 10 years into the past. He scoffed, knowing that soon, society would stop debating this issue entirely. Survival would become possessing future knowledge. However, power required a foundation. His first priority was selecting a class, and to do that, he needed to grind his way to level 10. Options were scarce. To make matters worse, the major guilds held a monopoly on all the regulated dungeons. Access was tightly controlled. He found himself inside a goblin den, a lowly F-rank portal. He calculated that slaying the last beast would boost him to level 6, but he wasn't alone. A man was already engaging the goblins nearby. The older stranger who was this guy? Akoma wondered. The stranger lectured him, insisting a rookie couldn't clear this dungeon solo. Goblins might be weak individually, but in a pack, they were deadly. Flashing a confident, friendly grin, the man finally introduced himself. I'm Kenji, he declared. He was a level 16 hunter with excellent swordsmanship, dedicated to ensuring greenhorns didn't meet an early grave. He boasted that people called him the tutorial guy. Internally, Akoma rolled his eyes, thinking this man clearly had way too much free time on his hands. Kenji explained his logic, since hunters had no official retirement age. Guiding newbies was a steady, low-risk way to stack cash. Akoma put on a show of discouragement. He sighed heavily, wondering aloud how he had ended up in such a pathetic situation. Suddenly, his demeanor flipped. He shouted in triumph. The system chime rang out sweet music to his ears, confirming he had finally hit level 10 and earned precious skill points. The enthusiastic veteran started slapping Akoma on the back with enough force to bruise. He congratulated the rookie loudly for hitting the milestone. As Akoma offered a polite thanks, Kenji beamed. He teased that if the kid kept up this momentum, he might actually make a name for himself one day. Akoma smirked internally. Famous, no. He wasn't aiming for fame. He was going to ascend to the realm of the S-rank hunters. Kenji reminded him that class selection was imminent. He puffed out his chest, offering his mentorship for the crucial decision ahead. The protagonist fell silent, calculating his next move. Every class offered a unique skill tree, unlocked only by spending those hard-earned points. The veteran eagerly suggested the swordsman class. He argued it was the best path, allowing the kid to slice through enemies just like him. Or, considering Akoma's high agility, the bandit class would be a solid fit. Kenji paused, puzzled, noticing the boy still hadn't locked in a choice. Do you not know how to use your points? Kenji asked, concern creeping into his voice. He lectured Akoma about the mandatory starter pack. Light steps and fortitude were non-negotiable. They were the foundation for boosting physical stats. For a beginner with zero defense mechanisms, these skills were the lifeline that separated the living from the dead. But Akoma ignored him. His goal was absolute apex power, and he couldn't afford to waste a single point on trash-tier common skills. He needed only one specific skill to trigger his destiny. As Akoma confirmed his selection, Kenji panicked. He tried to physically stop him, ranting that damage resistance skills were absolute garbage. You're crazy, Kenji yelled. When will you ever need fall damage resistance? Are you planning to jump off a cliff? The system ignored the veteran's pleas. Skill acquired, fall damage resistance. Kenji gaped, asking if Akoma had a phobia of heights or just a death wish. But the madness didn't stop. Kenji watched in horror as the rookie dumped 10 more precious points into the same useless skill. Stop, Kenji screamed, losing his mind. Akoma ignored him, burning 15 more points to evolve the resistance to level 3. The veteran slumped over, devastated. He muttered that the kid had just flushed his entire potential down the drain for a joke skill. "You've ruined your build," Kenji groaned. "Your only choices now are a crippled swordsman or retiring as a civilian." "There's a third path," Akoma said calmly. Kenji froze as the system flashed a legendary notification. Class selected Gravity Master. It was a hidden class, a legendary role that only appeared for the lunatic brave enough to dump every single point from level 1 to 10 into fall damage resistance. For years, this class had remained a myth. The activation requirement was so absurdly specific and wasteful that no sane person had ever triggered it. Even when the secret was eventually revealed, few dared to take it. Manipulating the fundamental force of gravity was considered the hardest path to master. But Akoma wasn't a rookie. He was a returned S-rank hunter, and he knew the truth. Gravity Master was the undisputed king of all classes. Kenji shrieked, eyes bulging, unaware of the miracle he was witnessing. "Stop. What are you doing? That's going to turn you into a squishy midge." Kenji begged him to reconsider, urging him to pick the path of the sword instead. But Akoma stood firm, his eyes burning with resolve. This was his destiny. The system chimed, sealing his fate. A new class flashed before his eyes, Gravity Master, granting him dominance over the fundamental forces of the world. Victory surged through him. Akoma threw his hands up in triumph, shouting to the heavens. At long last, he had awakened as a midge. No more weakness, no more mockery. In this life, he would ascend to the peak as a powerful S-rank hunter and crush the humiliation of his past. But Kenji watched with trembling anxiety. He called out to the boy, desperate to make him understand. The path of magic wasn't the glory road he imagined. The veteran's voice cracked with worry. He explained the harsh reality. Mages were fragile, glass cannons on a battlefield of steel. Their mortality rates were catastrophic compared to other classes. He even pleaded with the kid to quit being a hunter entirely before he wound up in a grave. Akoma listened calmly, unsurprised by the outburst. The world always underestimated the arcane arts, believing brute strength was the only path to power. Suddenly, Kenji's face drained of color. His scream tore through the air, eyes widening in pure terror at the nightmare manifesting before them. A red-hooded goblin, level 17. The beast materialized from the shadows like a demon from hell. Kenji froze, his mind reeling. A high-level monster in a rookie's own? It was impossible, a death sentence for everyone here. With a blood-curdling screech, the goblin locked onto its prey, charging straight for a terrified female hunter. Kenji threw himself into the fray to save her, but despair gnawed at his heart. He knew he lacked the strength to kill it. That's why he had rotted in this tutorial zone for years. The other hunters were useless, barely level 10. Against a monster of this caliber, they were nothing but sheep waiting for the slaughter. Panic threatened to consume him, until he remembered the boy. Gripping his blade until his knuckles turned white, Kenji roared, vowing to hold the beast back. Even Akoma was taken aback by the spawn. He quickly analyzed the situation at Kenji's level. The old man should barely be able to survive this encounter. But reality was cruel. Kenji was completely overwhelmed, forced entirely on the defensive as the goblin rained down a relentless storm of attacks. Akoma narrowed his eyes. It was obvious. The old man had zero experience fighting opponents that outclass him. He was losing. Desperation broke Kenji's voice. He screamed out to the crowd, begging for help from anyone level 15 or higher. The crowd was confused. Wasn't Kenji level 16? But levels meant nothing without courage. He couldn't face a monster that surpassed his own rank. Akoma hesitated. Logic dictated he stay back. The monster was a powerhouse, far beyond what a novice mage should challenge. He couldn't even track its speed. One hit would mean instant death, especially when he hadn't even mastered his new gravity powers yet. His stats were garbage. Survival odds were near zero. But then, the image of Kenji's kindness flashed in his mind. The man had cared when no one else did. A fire ignited in his chest. He couldn't stand by and watch a good man be butchered. Not this time. Akoma drew his blade, his fear replaced by a cold thrill. He always loved a challenge. It was time to see if he could shatter the limits of his class. Kenji's eyes bulged in horror. He screamed at the boy to stop. His level was suicidal for this fight. Mages were Akoma ignored the warning. He shouted at the Red Hood, drawing its bloodthirsty gaze. This beast would be the perfect test subject for his gravity mastery. He had staked his entire second life on this class. If he fled from a mere goblin now, he didn't deserve to hold this power. As he stepped onto the battlefield, his resolve hardened. If he couldn't prove his strength here, choosing the path of the mage was meaningless. "Run, you fool!" Kenji shrieked, but it was too late. The goblin unsheathed its blade and launched itself at the rookie like a cannonball. The fatal but Akoma gravity manipulation, 50%. The command echoed in his mind as the weight of the world lifted from his shoulders. He moved like a phantom. Akoma smirked. The downside. Another strike. Dodged. Steel flashed. Kenji stood paralyzed. This was the secret art. Akoma analyzed the beast cold-bloodedly. Low-level trash had simple patterns. As long as he was faster, this fight was already over. "How are you doing this?" Snapping out of it, a cold smile. The laws of physics bend to high above. The old steel meets flesh. The relief watch. Bystanders watch. Kenji watches. The veteran is stunned. But victory comes at a cost. A sharp, agonizing pain suddenly shoots through the protagonist's body. He collapses against a rock, gasping for air. His mana is completely drained. It is a harsh wake-up call. He needs to master his skill efficiency, or the next fight could be his last. Meanwhile, the old man beams with pure relief. Against all odds, they both survived the nightmare. Kenji approaches, gratitude written all over his face. Seeing the boy's exhaustion, he offers his broad back to carry the savior home. Akoma hesitates, his pride stinging a bit. It is embarrassing, but his legs refuse to move. He has no choice but to accept the help. The portal was full of as they walk. Kenji no more hiding. Kenji whispers into the dungeon proved it. As a gravity master, Akoma controls the battlefield. But raw talent is not enough. Now, the real grind begins. He must level up. Yet, solo play. At the guild reception, the attendant stares blankly. A gravity-related class? She has never heard of such a thing in all her years. She eyes his status sheet with skepticism. Can someone with such abysmal stats even survive? Akoma ignores the judgment, cutting straight to the chase. Is anyone looking for a party member? She nods slowly. There is one squad, a team that accepts anyone, regardless of class or rank. Akoma's eyes light up. Introduce me. She hesitates. Akoma just smirks. Rare classes are misunderstood, often seen as burdens. He expected this uphill battle from the start. Just give me their contact, he demands. He will solve this problem the way he solves everything else head on. Suddenly, a shadow. Akoma turns. He puffs out his chest. I am Kakaro, of the Thunder Knights. He says the name like it is royalty. Every hunter worth their salt knows my name. Akoma raises an eye. Cowards hiding. He looks down, and those. Akoma catches a detail. Also, so you have a rare class too? A wicked grin spreads across Kakaro's face. You want to see what real power looks like? He draws his blade. Blue arcs of electricity. Gasps ripple. Sir, no skills. He turns his mocking gaze back to Akoma. It is none of my business what you do, really. But thinking a weakling like you belongs on a team, that is pure arrogance. While the fool preaches, Akoma's mind is working. A Thunder Knight, interesting. High damage output. Against us. Around them, the whisper. Eyes shine with jealousy as they look at the Thunder Knight. Power, status, a rare class. Kakaro has everything they dream of. Akoma sighs internally. Portals are still a new phenomenon here. He almost forgot how ignorant the world used to be. How mages were treated like dirt in these early days. They think numbers on a screen are everything. They think flashy skills make a hunter. If this is the world he lives in, perhaps fighting alone is not such a bad option after all. The receptionist finally finds her voice, trembling but firm. Kakaro. There was no need for such cruelty, but the tension in the room remains suffocating. The protagonist offers a curt nod of gratitude, admitting he overstepped by asking for help, and firmly declares his intention to walk this path alone. A derisive laugh cuts through the air as the unhinged hunter mocks him, suggesting he rethink his career choice unless he wants to leave a corpse behind as a grim souvenir. Without looking back, Akoma thanks him for the twisted advice. leaving Kakshu staring at his retreating back with a gaze full of dangerous curiosity. Silence reigns in the Hunter Guild archives as Akoma studies a tome, realizing that trust is a currency he hasn't earned yet, leaving him locked out of party play for the foreseeable future. Music. His path is clear. He needs a reliable partner or a class with perfect synergy. But first, he must shatter his limits and achieve the impossible solo. Confidence surges as he recalls his victory over the Red Hood, where the true terrifying potential of a gravity user was first unleashed. His eyes scan the records for a challenge worthy of his ambition. Searching for a portal teeming with monsters far above his current league, his gaze locks onto a specific entry, the Statue Temple, a level 25 dungeon. Calls out to him like a beacon of destiny. These controlled portals are the Hunter Guild's training grounds, kept open intentionally so warriors can bathe in blood and experience. The apex predator of that dungeon is the Stone Knight, making it a goldmine for low-level hunters brave enough to risk their lives. If he can claim the head of such a beast single-handedly, the elite teams will have no choice but to acknowledge his strength. The rules allow anyone to enter regardless of rank, offering a chance to power level by hunting the fodder near the entrance. Music. Akoma slams the book shut with conviction. He will conquer the Statue Temple, grind his levels to the stratosphere, and forge his own legend. Meanwhile, deep inside a dungeon, the sound of frantic footsteps echoes against the cold stone walls. A hunter flees in terror, screaming that reality has broken, only to trip and stare up in horror at the nightmare looming over him. The darkness is shattered by a bone-crushing impact as a blood-soaked stone golem stands motionless over its latest victim. Back at the guild, the receptionist's jaw drops as she processes Akoma's request. Unable to fathom a level 12 rookie challenging the Statue Temple alone, unfazed by her shock, the protagonist calmly reminds her that the guild regulations contain no clause forbidding his suicide mission. Her voice trembles as she processes the paperwork, warning him that while it is legal, he is essentially signing his own death warrant. The recommended level is 25 for a reason, she insists. Music warning that dungeons are chaotic realms where death strikes without mercy. Akoma turns on his heel, tossing a casual reassurance over his shoulder that he is just going for a quick look, not a permanent residence. Standing before the swirling vortex of the portal, he steels his resolve. Music knowing that safety is the enemy of growth. He has always punched above his weight class. Fighting weaker monsters now would only stagnate the evolution music his soul craves. Time is of the essence, and slaughtering a high-tier beast here is the fastest way to skyrocket. Through the levels, music steps into the silent hall of statues, but his instincts flare as he notices a blue crystal pulsing on the forehead of one stone figure. The statue lunges with blinding speed to capitalize on his blind spot, but Akoma weaves aside effortlessly. Having predicted the ambush, the system window flickers to life, confirming his suspicion that this animated construct is a level 20 monster. Locking eyes with the stone sentinel, the protagonist grins, confident that this pile of rocks is merely stepping stone for his ascent. But the battle shifts instantly. Surprise colors his expression as the relentless golem backs him into a corner. With suffocating pressure, he triggers his gravity reduction skill instantly, becoming light as a feather to escape the kill zone and deliver a counter-strike. His blade connects, his eyes sharpen. The damage is minimal, and he realizes this battle will be a test of endurance rather than a sprint. But he never expects it might take time. The moment he finds, with a thunderous impact, his blade pierces the monster's chest, and a sinister crimson light begins to bleed from the fracture. The statue then, instantly, the gamble pays off. Golden light engulfs him as he gains multiple levels in a single breath. Deciding to reinvest his power immediately, he pulls up the status window with a plan already forming, knowing he only has enough points to evolve a single skill to the next tier. Without hesitation, he dumps everything into gravity manipulation. The system chimes and a smirk plays on his lips, but these cores are the ultimate proof of the hunt, the heart of the monsters. Even with the objective secured, his mana reserves are still overflowing with power. He scans the darkness, hungry for more. Spotting a fresh cluster of enemies, he decides it's the perfect time to test the limits of his new abilities. Suddenly crack, a blinding bolt of lightning descends, obliterating one of the statues in an instant. It's the Thunder Knight squad, raiding the same dungeon instance. One of Kakaru's lackeys heaps praise on his leader's flashy entrance. One strike, one Kaka. With a mocking laugh, he steps forward. The arrogant, he shrugs. A brush with. Someone had to say it. Boom! A deafening roar echoes from the next chamber. Kakaru draws his blade, eyes narrowing. Is that the same monster type? His teammate notes the seal. Some are just larger. What is that? It towers. His teammate's face goes pale, terror setting in. We can't fight a level 30, it's suicide. Kakaru ignores, convinced his thunder arts. The ground fractures under. He grips it. That's why. Suddenly, the slow monster blurs. Kakaru barely manages to dodge, sweat pouring down his face as the wind pressure nearly knocks him over. The speed is unnatural. Gritting his teeth, he launches himself into the air. Fine, you're fast. I'll just shatter your weak point after I land this. Thunder roars, but the impact. The Stone Knight doesn't even flinch. It raises its massive greatsword for a counterattack that promises absolute death. Kakaru flares his aura to the max. Thunder Knight style. I can block this. I just need to deflect and roll. Too slow, the blade connects faster than sight. Blood sprays as steel slices through his chest armor like paper. He hits the floor hard, gasping for air. His mind can't process the overwhelming difference in strength. His voice trembles, eyes widening in horror. I have high-level gear. Barely anything outranks me. But this monster, it's on a different dimension. His teammate screams. The warning comes too late. The statue lunges at Karen. She raises her guard, but the force is like a colliding train, buckling her knees. She's sent flying across the room. The other teammate rushes in to save her only to take a brutal blow to the gut. The impact is sickening. He coughs up a fountain of blood, his internal organs rattled by the shockwave. Kakaru stares at his fallen squad. The terror finally sets in. This isn't a hunt anymore, it's a massacre. The monster looms over him like a god of death. Kakaru screams, desperate to prove his worth. I am the chosen one. I am special. He channels every ounce of his life force into one final, desperate lightning strike. Take this. Maximum output. It hit. Kakaru stares at his broken hilt, his ultimate weapon, destroyed like a toy. He scrambles backward, legs giving out. Tears stream. Reality crashes down. As the blade rises for the final execution, Kakaru's mind shatters. No, this can't be happening. I don't want to die like this. His plea echoes in the empty hall, right next to the shards of his broken pride. The stone colossus stands frozen, glaring down at him like he is nothing but a bug. Trembling in terror, the man begins to beg for his miserable life. He bows before the monster, pleading for mercy. His voice cracks into a scream as he desperately begs for a savior. Suddenly, a leg wrapped in violet magic interrupts the despair. The monster raises its massive stone blade, but the protagonist counters instantly with gravitational reduction. The effect is immediate. The massive statue freezes, momentarily paralyzed by the sudden shift in weight. Confused, the Akoma lands. Shocked, Kakaru, what are you doing? The protagonist is only level 16. He knows the hunter is right. This won't be a walk in the park against a level 30 Stone Knight. That abomination. Still, the sheer scale of the beast is intimidating. He only wanted a light warm-up, a quick hunt before heading out. He never expected to run into a calamity of this magnitude. Cowering on the ground, the man shouts at him to stop staring and run. That thing wiped his squad out before they could even lift a weapon. With his companions broke, but he barely evades. The moment his boots touch the dirt, he leaps back into the air. He maneuvers mid-air, positioning himself right above the beast. He brings his blade crashing down onto the knight's helmet. Watching, he is fighting a boss but speed isn't enough. The real problem is his lack of firepower. The statue. Akoma admits this is reckless as he weaves through the air, but he has to try. The massive sword slices the wind where he just stood. Kakaru's hope. The gravity reduction burns mana like fuel, but without it, fighting a monster this powerful is suicide. He cannot. A massive spinning in the air to build momentum. He uses his own body's gravity to pin the enemy's blade into the earth. The monster throws a desperate punch. Akoma vaults over the fist and lands squarely on his opponent's head. Kakaru, the protagonist, bounces off the monster's skull. He wanted to save his level to manipulation for later, but he is out of options. He activates his trump card, reverse gravity. Instantly, the world flips. The boy stands upside down, his feet planted firmly on the dungeon ceiling, while the enemy searches for him below. Even the monster pauses, confused by the sudden disappearance. From this height, Akoma thinks, I can deal lethal damage. Determined to finish it, he activates gravity increase. He readies his sword. The skill multiplies his weight exponentially. Combined with the acceleration of freefall, he will become a human missile. He shouts, "It's too late to stop me now." Like a comet streaking from the heavens, he unleashes the meteor fall technique to end the war. Crash! The giant monster is cleaved in two. As its body disintegrates into light, a notification pops up. 524 experience points gained. The system chimes, level 16 to level 23 instantly. He even bags 14 bonus skill points. His gamble paid off. Slaying a monster nearly double his level granted him an insane amount of growth. Akoma lands in the rubble, victorious. He checks his stats. Fall damage resistance has leveled up to 3. He winces, admitting the impact nearly broke his bones. But gaining that resistance early? Totally worth the pain. Kakaru stood frozen, his jaw practically hitting the floor. He couldn't deny the truth staring him in the face. It was nothing short of a miracle. His own lightning magic had bounced off that beast harmlessly due to its insane resistance. Yet somehow, a mirmage had crushed the monster that completely walled him. Shame burned his cheeks as he stammered out a question. Why save him? Especially after he'd treated the protagonist like trash back at the guild? Fear suddenly spiked in his chest. Was this a trap? Had Akoma only cornered him here to exact a brutal revenge for the past? Tension mounted, but the boy simply offered a hand. He asked if Kakaru could stand, checking on his condition with genuine concern. Seeing Kakaru flinch, Akoma couldn't help but burst into laughter. The guy's terrified expression was definitely not the thank you he expected. Realizing he was safe, Kakaru grasped the offered hand. The tension broke, replaced by a sincere gratitude for saving his life. Later at the Hunters Guild, the receptionist nearly choked on her coffee. A level 30 stone knight here? Her eyes widened in disbelief as she asked the impossible question. Had he really killed it solo? He gave a curt nod, keeping the epic details to himself. That's absurd, she blurted out. He was a rookie solo player mathematically. He shouldn't even be alive, let alone victorious. Silence fell as he dropped the heavy demon stone onto the counter. Is this proof enough for you? The receptionist gaped. A core that massive could only come from a monster level 30 or higher. Shaking, she processed the intake. Did he want to cash out? Music. She calculated the value, her voice trembling. The single stone was worth a staggering 200,000 yen. Not today, Akoma replied coolly. He needed the stone to prove his rank. But before he could leave, a familiar voice called out from behind. It was Kakaru again. He'd been hunting Akoma down, desperate to offer a proper thank you for the rescue. But gratitude wasn't the only thing on his mind. He spread his arms wide, dropping a bombshell offer. Join the Thunder Knights. Gasps rippled through the guild hall. The Thunder Knights were a rising powerhouse. Getting scouted by them was a rookie's dream. Whispers of envy filled the room as they eyed the core in Akoma's hand. Kakaru grinned, insisting this was a golden ticket that nobody in their right mind would refuse. Akoma scratched his head, feeling the weight of 100 jealous stares burying him. Kakaru beamed, expecting a yes, but Akoma dropped the hammer. Sorry, but unfortunately, I'll have to pass. Kakaru's smile crumbled. What? He couldn't compute the rejection. Wasn't every hunter desperate for a team? I was, Akoma admitted with a shrug. But plans change. I work better alone. He turned on his heel, leaving a stunned Kakaru in his wake. Mentally, he calculated the odds if he kept leveling at this insane pace. His true goal was within reach. A specific dungeon was about to open, the Theater of Nightmares. Hidden inside was a god-tier item, armed with memories from his past life. Akoma vowed to be the first to clear it and claim the prize. Asterisk clatter. Asterisk. He dumped a fresh pile of monster stones onto the guild counter. Cash these out. The air grew heavy. The receptionist stared at the loot, sweat beading on her forehead. How was a solo player massacring entire ecosystems by himself? Akoma ignored her shock. He wasn't done yet. I have another request. Promote me to rank D, a bold move. Rank F hunters usually needed a class change for rank E, but only rank D could enter the disaster portals. The receptionist shook her head, citing protocol. Impossible. You can't apply for that promotion until you hit level 25. A smirk played on Ikoma's lips as he flashed his status window. Then there's no problem, music. I'm already level 26. The woman nearly fainted. A solo mage reaching that level in record time. It was unheard of. How, she whispered. Gaining that much experience so quickly defied all logic. It bordered on suspicious. She wondered if gravity masters were simply broken classes. Regardless of the mystery, the paperwork was stamped. Akoma was officially promoted. Now he had the trifecta, a broken class, 10 years of future knowledge, and the instincts of an S-class hunter from his previous life. Speedrunning levels was risky. It put a target on his back. But with the timeline ticking down, he didn't have the luxury of stealth. With rank D secured, a new world of high-tier portals unlocked before him. It made joining raids easier, but more importantly, it was his key to enter the specific dungeon holding the unique weapon. In his past life, that weapon had fallen into the hands of a psychopath who became a legendary serial killer. The sudden power had driven the man mad. Akoma clenched his fist. He would rewrite history and ensure that nightmare never came to pass. But he couldn't do it entirely alone. He scanned the room. A massive raid party would be a burden, but a duo, that could work. Just one reliable partner would increase his survival odds without slowing him down. Caution was key. He needed a specialist, someone whose abilities could sync perfectly with his gravity magic. Music. His mind raced through the options. He needed a paradox, a hunter strong enough to work alone, yet willing to trust him with their life. Akoma paused for a moment, wrestling with his own thoughts. He began to wonder if his standards were simply too high. But time was running out. To find the right teammate, he would have to scour every guild in the region. He checked the time and sighed. Half the day was already gone. This was the 4th guild he had visited, and hope was fading fast. As he pushed through the doors, he muttered that perhaps it was time to lower his expectations. But suddenly a commotion broke out. A harsh voice cut through the air, screaming that their companion was completely useless. A girl, on the verge of tears, stammered an apology, but her teammate cut her off cold, sneering that sorry wouldn't fix anything. Akoma stopped, curious about the drama unfolding. The woman pointed an accusing finger at Satsuki, declaring her fired on the spot. Desperate, the girl begged for a second chance, promising to try harder. The leader scoffed, irritated by her pleading. She claimed Satsuki's skills were trash, and her cooldowns were lethally long, making her techniques worthless in battle. The insult went deeper. The leader hissed that she should be the one getting paid just for dragging such dead weight around. Satsuki stood frozen, unable to find the words to fight back. Meanwhile, Akoma watched the scene with calculated eyes. It reminded him of his own expulsion from a party long ago. But he hardened his heart. He couldn't recruit a partner out of mere pity. His life was on the line here. The ex-leader continued to mock Satsuki, laughing at her for choosing such a miserable, trash-tier class that mirrored her own uselessness. She added a final sting, claiming she knew exactly how this would end the moment she learned the girl was a witch. That single word which struck Akoma like a bolt of lightning. While the others mocked her, his interest skyrocketed. Sorcery and gravity magic were a perfect match. In the theater dungeon, that specific combination could deal devastating damage to the boss. He hesitated no longer. He had to decide right now. Before he could move, the toxic leader noticed him staring and snapped, asking what he was looking at. Akoma stepped forward smoothly, introducing himself as a D-rank hunter seeking a team. The woman's attitude flipped instantly when she heard his rank. She immediately tried to seduce him into her party. With a sly smile, she mentioned a spot had just opened up in her music group, asking if he wanted to fill it. But Akoma looked past her, calling out to Satsuki with excitement, asking if she wanted to join him instead. The girl blinked, unable to process what was happening, while her former leader stood there, utterly baffled by the rejection. Mentally, Akoma grinned. He couldn't let this chance slip away. She wasn't just a witch, she was exactly the person he had been hunting for. The toxic woman, flustered and embarrassed, Akoma didn't care. She tried to protest, her confidence real, but Akoma, moved by his sincerity, Satsuki bowed deeply. She said if he really wanted her, she would be honored to join his party. Her ex-leader exploded in disbelief. She mocked Akoma for picking such a loser, screaming that he would live to regret this decision. The boy, as he walked past her, his voice turned cold. He stated that he knew more about class potential than anyone alive. And right behind him was his new partner, a witch. Sometime, Akoma turned. Satsuki still looked doubtful. She looked up, asking, portal ahead, controlled dungeon. Higher. Satsuki's face went pale. She screamed that the level gap was suicide, especially for an uncharted portal. Uncharted portal. Panic set in, but Akoma told her to relax. That knowledge was, he declared. He felt a pang of guilt. Satsuki demanded. She scoffed. Suddenly, the silence shattered. Every phone in the vicinity erupted with emergency alerts. Heart pounding, Satsuki snatched her device to check the screen. Akoma calmly did the same. The streets buzzed with panic. The notification was viral instantly. A new gate had opened in the Sikyo district. Was this the one? Akoma nodded, but dropped a bombshell. They wouldn't enter until tomorrow. He predicted this dungeon was a death trap that no one would clear in the first week. But the time skip, the duo, the portal protocol demand, but her warning was Akoma. Satsuki was inside the rift, but he made a vow. The fear of being she offered herself as she panicked her. It was a support, but its true value, with her fueling Satsuki, she insisted it was better to use direct damage spells to help bring enemies down faster. Internally, Akoma, the enemy appeared. She focused, weaving the monster. Gravity multiplied. He descended like a meteor, driving his weapon straight into the bear's skull. Silence. Satsuki gasped. Akoma. They were a team, so she had to evolve. Satsuki paused. A team? It felt a genuine smile. Nerves still in his past life, but in this timeline, 2 days had passed since. Laughing, soaked in his adverse. The madman grinned. He was already level 36. A dangerous rival was rising. Meanwhile, Akoma continued his own grind. Dark energy Satsuki beam. Satsuki lowers her head, but the protagonist shakes his head. He looks her in the eye. Satsuki, shifting the mood. Akoma explains the dress. Satsuki recites the looming ahead is in a flash. It's a ruthless. Once filled, she can channel. Akoma with no other choice. The goblin collapses to the ground, completely husk-like after a cruel and total defeat. Now comes the transfer. Satsuki steps closer, cheeks burning red. Akoma raises an eyebrow, asking why she's blushing, warns her not to make this transaction weird. She places her. Satsuki frowns. Akoma's eye. Satsuki. 6 bodies later, the protagonist wipes his blade. He checks on her status to see if the battery is full. The thrill of growth, but Akoma plays the voice of Satsuki. It's a world apart from the protagonist. However, true strength isn't found in safety. To forge legendary skills and gain real experience, one must dance with death against high-level threats. Satsuki watches his back, his words igniting a fire in her soul. Suddenly, her hesitation burns away, replaced by resolve. Time passes. They arrive at a grand, Gothic cathedral. Satsuki swallows hard, asking if they are truly going to clear this final zone. He halts. This is it. Standing before the massive doors, Akoma announces the master of this domain, the boss of the theater of maniacal dreams. He reaches for the handle with a confident smirk. They reach the end in just 2 days. He'd bet his life the Eradication Ministry never saw this speedrun coming. Satsuki starts to shake, the reality of a boss monster finally sinking in. The doors open to reveal a titan. Akoma doesn't speak. He just analyzes the beast with cold calculation. But beneath his calm exterior, desire burns. Defeating this boss is the key to reclaiming the legendary item he coveted in his past life. Let's end this. He commands her to follow the strategy. Satsuki nods, steeling herself. But they aren't alone. A silhouette lurks in the darkness behind them. Karu watches from the protagonist. He shouts that he'll draw the aggro. Satsuki needs to hold her position and wait for the perfect opening. Boss monsters are tanky abominations, massive HP pools, and insane regeneration. A brute force attack is suicide. They need to play dirty, as Akoma strategizes. The boss conjures a swirling sphere of light in its massive palms. With a flick of its wrist, the projectile screams through the air toward the enemy. Akoma triggers gravity reduction. He gauges the distance 1 meter and sidesteps with unnatural grace. Meanwhile, Satsuki begins her chant. She casts Mana Drain, aiming to siphon the boss's power from the blind spot. But the monster's instincts are too sharp. It senses the fly on its back. The moment its gaze shifts, terror strikes. Before she can react, the boss locks her down. Satsuki is completely paralyzed. Akoma shouted desperately, his voice cracking with urgency as he ordered her to flee. He warned her that the boss was about to unleash its signature teleportation strike. There was no time to hesitate. He explained that once the spell was cast, there was no stopping it, screaming for her to sprint toward the center of the room. Suddenly, the clown's eye began to burn with a sinister light. Satsuki froze. A massive, looming shadow stretched over her, the presence of the monster rising like a nightmare right behind her back. It was right on top of her. The boss unhinged its jaw, a massive fireball swirling into existence within its maw. Without mercy, it launched the devastating attack point blank at the girl. But Akoma was already moving. He rushed headlong toward the danger, shouting that he was still standing. The monster merely continued its maniacal, bone-chilling laughter. In a split second, Akoma managed to nullify the fire attack completely. Satsuki watched in awe, realizing just how terrifyingly fast that strike had actually been. Akoma realized he needed distance, instantly leaping backward and landing squarely on the clown's back to reposition. But the boss wasn't finished. Akoma grit his teeth. The giant clown, a massive explosion of... To its shock, Akoma was now hanging casually upside down in midair. However, the boss's eye began to glow for a terrifying third time. Akoma muttered that this wasn't as easy as he had imagined. Yet, despite the chaos, a smirk played on his lips. Everything was proceeding exactly according to plan. The girl's mind flashed back to their strategy meeting. She had asked why they couldn't just rush the boss, but Akoma had explained the deadly trap. The boss cast spells at godlike speeds. A slow approach meant instant incineration. However, he had revealed the other side of the coin. If they tried to snipe it from a distance, the monster would simply teleport instantly into killing range. It seemed like a checkmate. But every monster has a fatal flaw. Snapping back to the present, Satsuki unleashed her Mana Drain ability. The clown's head snapped toward her. The beast's eyes went wide, seeing an easy kill. Satsuki trembled in fear, realizing she was too close and Akoma was too far away to save her this time. But in his mind, Akoma declared that the time had come. The boss extended its palm, summoning the energy to obliterate her. The girl squeezed her eyes shut, bracing for death. But seconds passed, and nothing happened. The magic refused to cast. A triumphant smile broke across Akoma's face. He revealed the truth. The boss was completely dry. Those high-tier fire attacks and teleportation moves had drained every drop of its mana. And the cherry on top, this clown was useless without its skills. Realizing it was powerless, the monster turned and began to flee. But there was no escape. Akoma launched himself into the air. He activated Meteor Fall, crashing down like a human comet directly onto the boss's head. Akoma roared that it would never escape his grasp. Without its teleportation, the creature was nothing more than a sitting duck. Satsuki seized the moment. She cast her magic, hurling a sphere of pure darkness at the enemy. The monster shrieked as the shadows consumed it. Akoma grabbed the beast, cranked the gravity to the max, and crushed it into the ground with the weight of a mountain. The dungeon boss was finally slain. A system notification rang out. 1,043 experience points gained. A golden light enveloped Akoma as he ascended to level 30. Satsuki beamed with joy, celebrating their impossible victory. She asked what the next move was. Akoma checked the timer. The gate would close soon, so they had to exfiltrate now. A shadow of worry crossed Satsuki's face. She asked what would happen if they actually got trapped inside. Akoma chuckled, telling her to relax. The gate would remain stable for at least half a day, and the area was clear of mobs. They were safe. Blushing furiously, the girl muttered that she totally knew that already. Suddenly, the clown's corpse began to emit a brilliant light. Confused, Satsuki asked what was going on. Aikoma's eyes lit up. He had finally done it. Floating in front of him was the ultimate reward, the clown's blade. Akoma stared at the weapon in awe. This blade was the holy grail for a gravity master. In the hands of a skilled player, this item was practically a cheat code. A satisfied grin spread across his face. Obtaining it had been easier than he thought. Satsuki peered closer, asking if this rusty thing was really the legendary gear he wanted. She read the stats, an attack increase of only 11 points. With a minor reduction in skill activation time and mana cost, it seemed like trash loot. Satsuki remarked that the stats looked incredibly average for a boss drop, but Akoma shook his head, insisting that she wasn't seeing the big picture. It was incredible. He explained that raw damage numbers were just a bonus. The true value lay in the item's passive effect. For a class like his that relied heavily on spamming skills, this effect was a game changer. It amplified the overall power of his entire build. A gravity master was usually a glass cannon, vulnerable whenever they ran out of mana or switched skills. But this weapon erased that weakness entirely. Satsuki listened, stunned by his deep knowledge of the system. Akoma knew the dark history of this timeline. In his past life, the hunter who originally found this sword used it to reach rank S. But that power corrupted him, turning him into a mass-murdering criminal. By taking the sword now, Akoma wasn't just getting stronger, he was preventing a future tragedy. Satsuki stared at the blade, processing the fact that he had just covered his only weakness. Suddenly, panic seized her heart. Her voice trembled as she asked the question haunting her. Now that he was invincible, did he still need her? Akoma immediately shut that thought down. He insisted that wasn't true at all. The item didn't give him infinite mana, after all. He looked at her warmly and asked if she would mind staying by his side a little longer. Akoma stares at the blade, lost in thought, but Satsuki is having none of it. Her temper flares, declaring that their rivalry has officially begun. But Akoma's focus shifts inward to the glowing system interface. After gaining a few levels, he has a treasure trove of skill points, burning a hole in his pocket. Since he aims to stand at the absolute pinnacle of this world, he decides to go all in. He pours everything into the exclusive abilities of the Gravity Master class. Hesitation lingers for a split second before resolve hardens his gaze. He makes his choice, boosting his gravitational magic level to 2. The power surges as he upgrades his manipulation to level 3. Suddenly, a notification chimes. He has unlocked a devastating new skill, the Super Gravity Bullet. A grin spreads across his face. He had relied on basic manipulation for too long, but this item changes the entire game. The magic hums beneath his skin, demanding release. The protagonist trembles with excitement, desperate to test out his destructive new arsenal. But the celebration is cut short. A voice drips from the shadows, apologizing for a late arrival. Koru steps into the light, noting that the boss has already been slain. A wicked glint flashes in the stranger's eyes. He remarks that Akoma must be formidable to have cleared the dungeon solo. Akoma's heart skips a beat. This is the worst possible timing. He realizes this stranger didn't just walk in. He had been using high-level stealth to watch the entire battle. The stranger had likely been analyzing the boss's patterns, waiting like a vulture for both Akoma and the monster to kill each other. Akoma's mind races, recalling how often he saw this treachery in his past life. He demands the stranger's identity, his eyes narrowing in suspicion. Then the realization strikes like a thunderbolt. He knows this man. It is Koru the Butcher who stole the blade in the previous timeline and turned hunters into prey. Confusion wars with shock. In the original history, Koru arrived at the portal much later. Akoma curses internally. What is this psychopath doing here so early? This deviation from the timeline spells disaster. The truth clicks into place. Koru had been hiding in the boss chamber the entire time, lurking in the dark to steal the drop. Satsuki notices the tension and asks what is wrong. Ignoring her, Koru points to the sword, asking if that is the legendary loot from the boss. His voice remains smooth as silk as he asks if he can take a closer look at the prize. Akoma plays along, extending his hand, but he knows the game. Internally, Koru sneers at them, planning to gut the boy first and leave the girl for his twisted amusement. His dark fantasies run wild, imagining how he will toy with Satsuki once her protector is a cooling corpse. The psychopath steps closer, feigning concern, warning them to be careful. But as he reaches out, his eyes glow with a blood-red thirst. In a blur of motion, Koru draws his dagger and activates Life Eraser. Akoma reacts on instinct, dodging the fatal strike by a hair's breadth. Koru spins around, thrilled by the resistance. But Akoma is already swinging his sword in a lethal counterattack. The assassin twists away, his speed defying logic. Cold sweat runs down Akoma's back. In that split second, he realizes he has lost track of the enemy. He had hoped to land a critical hit before Koru grasped the situation. But the killer's speed is in a league of its own. Satsuki stands frozen in shock, while Akoma is forced to admit the grim truth. Koru is far stronger than them. The assassin tilts his head, genuinely surprised the boy predicted the ambush. He had taken a... Satsuki demands answers, her voice trembling. Akoma doesn't sugarcoat it. This man is a hunter-killer, a predator who feasts on his own kind. He explains that Koru is an assassin class, granting him terrifying speed and the ability to vanish from sight. Koru laughs. He offers Akoma's demeanor. There is no evidence in the dark. Akoma knows Koru has zero intention of letting them live. The assassin pauses, then smiles wide. The boy is right. Koru praises his... The assassin readies his stance, declaring he wants to see Akoma, coughing up blood on his way to hell. But Akoma stands his ground, refusing to flinch. Despite his... This is the serial killer who wiped out countless parties. The man who wielded the clown's blade in the past life and became a legend of terror. Akoma berates him. When their blades clashed, Akoma screamed. He explains that she cannot step forward. Akoma begs her to trust him and leave the fighting to him alone. Internally, Akoma knows the odds are stacked against him. Fighting a lunatic like Koru one-on-one is suicide. But above all, with that resolve, Akoma's body... You've got talent. He throws... Mentally, Akoma analyzes. Koru weaves through the attacks. His eyes widen in disbelief. This kid, he isn't trembling. He isn't shocked at all. In fact, Akoma is countering every move with terrifying ease. Ridiculous. Koru spits, refusing to accept that a child is matching his speed. How is a low-level brat pushing an elite assassin back? Meanwhile, Satsuki watches from the sidelines, her heart pounding as the duel intensifies. The realization hits her. Akoma isn't just brilliant with strategy. He is a monster in close-quarters combat. Akoma's mind races with adrenaline. Thank God he secured this blade. It slashed his skills cooldown, allowing him to flicker between high and low gravity in the blink of an eye. Without that, and without the sword reducing his mana consumption, he would have been drained dry minutes ago. Playtime is over. A poisoned dart, death hurtles through the air, but Akoma's instincts are razor-sharp. He sees it coming. With a metallic... Before Koru can recover... Akoma remains... But Akoma panics. Akoma speaks. Koru freezes. Horror. If it were me... Satsuki sees her opening. She channels her mana, conjuring a swirling shadow sphere to support him. Koru senses the steel bite. A guttural scream tears Akoma by manipulating gravity. He's matched the assassin's speed perfectly. But a grim reality sets in. His mana is bottoming out. The boss fight. He charges. The assassin scrambles. He reads my mind. Akoma flickers from Koru desperately. Suddenly, you're strong. He stomps the ground. You die right here, Koru declares. Akoma and Satsuki brace themselves, the air thick with tension. Satsuki screams, launching another shadow sphere to save him. But Koru is too fast. He flickers away with shadow steps. Her eyes widen in pure terror. He dodged everything. Is there nothing that can stop him? Beyond the terror, she watches helplessly. The lunatic screams with laughter, his eyes wide with bloodlust. He absolutely loves this chaos. Sparks fly as savor this battle, make it last, Karu taunts. Akoma lunges for a lethal cut, but the psychopath weaves through the strike like smoke. The protagonist's heart is pounding. Anxiety is spiking, but he needs to find an opening fast. Using the massive weight of his greatsword as an anchor, Akoma pivots on one leg. A desperate gambit. He launches a crushing kick that connects squarely with Karu's jaw. The assassin stumbles back, fury blazing in his eyes. He creates distance instantly. "You've got some nasty tricks up your sleeve, kid," Karu spits. Akoma's mind races. He confirms his strategy. Trigger the *** gravity reduction *** skill. Make the body lighter than air. Unleash the acrobatics. Music with gravity-defying agility. He flows like water, dodging every lethal strike. But the veteran killer spots the fatal flaw. Akoma is burning through his mana reserves. The maniacal laughter returns, echoing through the battlefield as he stalks the boy. Karu grins. He knows Akoma is burning an active skill to boost his physical stats. But that tank is running dry. And the second that the onslaught resumes, Karu attacks from every angle with blinding speed. Akoma checks his status. Mana is critical. He has enough juice for exactly one final move. Is this a suicide? But Akoma, everything I have, goes into this one strike. Akoma grips his hilt, pouring every drop of his remaining life force into the blade. *** skill activated. Meteor fall. *** using the crushing weight of gravity. He dives straight down, slamming his opponent toward the earth. Karu catches the blade, but his knees buckle. What kind of monster strength is this? Music, he screams. No matter how much force he applies, he can't push the boy back. His defense shatters. The blade breaks through his guard, carving a deep, bloody trench across the assassin's chest. The impact is devastating. Satsuki rushes to his side, tears of relief in her eyes. "You won, Akoma, you won." But he simply whispers, "I'm sorry," and collapses into unconsciousness. But the nightmare is, "You little pest," summoning the last scrap. Even the enemy paw. The kid pushed. "I can't believe a warrior like you wasted his life protecting this useless baggage." The lunatic laughs, shaking his head. "I'm actually starting to admire you." Akoma's, "You didn't even give me your full name," Karu muses, wiping blood from his mouth. "That's some serious pride." Satsuki stands there, shattered by his words. Was she really just dragging Akoma down? I was right, she sobs, tears streaming down her face. "I should have quit being a hunter." If Akoma had been alone, he would have crushed a guy like this without breaking a sweat. She remembers the moment Akoma saved her. She screams internally, begging for strength. And suddenly, something snaps. Her expression shifts from fear to cold. "I really like you, kid. You're the first person I've ever respected." He raises his dagger, aiming for the heart. "I'll remember your face when I kill you." ***, boo. "You think that toy will hit me?" Karu dodges left, but pain explodes in his side. ***, whack. Satsuki's staff connects with brutal precision. From my blind spot, Karu mentally curses. He's heavily injured, and she exploited the one opening he couldn't see. Satsuki sprints toward her fallen partner. What are you doing?" Akoma wheezes. "I told you to run." "I'm done running," she declares, her voice ringing with power. "You showed me that I can fight too." She places her hands on him. ***, skill, mana transfer, ***. A brilliant light envelops them. She pours her own energy directly into his depleted reserves. The assassin stares, confused by the sudden surge of power. Realization strikes. "I'll kill you first, you witch," he screams, charging forward. He activates his ultimate technique, ***life eraser ***. Akoma looks up, locking eyes with him. But there is no fear anymore, only the cold, indifferent gaze of a predator restored. The protagonist breathes a sigh of relief, thanking her for the assist that saved them both. He is back on his feet, standing tall like an iron wall, effortlessly blocking the enemy's lethal strike. Mana surges back into Akoma's body at a terrifying rate. Witnessing this, Kao freezes in sheer disbelief, wondering if his opponent has already gathered enough energy to unleash that devastating ability. Once more, the villain screams that this power defies all logic, shattering the limits of what should be possible. But the protagonist just smirks, declaring that their victory was sealed the moment they began fighting as a true team. This bond existed long before the ambush even began. While Akoma stands fully recharged, Kao is left gasping for air, his body broken and bleeding. Akoma challenges him cold-bloodedly, demanding to see who truly owns this battlefield. Before launching a lightning-fast counterattack, panic sets in. The lunatic scrambles to dodge, fear clouding his eyes. But Akoma is a merciless predator, offering zero openings as he cranks his speed and strength up to a lethal new level. Refusing to accept defeat, the enemy roars that it is not over yet. He taps into forbidden arts, summoning a sinister red circle of dark magic right before him. Satsuki braces herself to face the blast. However, Akoma's voice cuts through the chaos, commanding her to hold her ground. In a shocking twist, Akoma unleashes his own gravity magic. He mocks the enemy, explaining that such slow casting is useless in real combat. In his past life, he used the clown's blade to bypass that very flaw, a trick this amateur clearly lacks. Staring into the abyss of Akoma's power, Kao realizes with trembling horror that his end has arrived. A massive black sphere, swirling like a miniature black hole, tears through the air. There's no escape. The attack slams into him head-on with catastrophic force. Kao collapses among the rubble, cursing that he was defeated by a mere low-level novice. Meanwhile, Akoma remains standing, his weapon ready, looking down like a chaotic god. In this twisted world, the government still lacks specific laws governing incidents within the portals. The Ministry of Monster Eradication turns a blind eye to these internal conflicts. Consequently, a dark, unspoken rule governs the hunters. What happens inside the dungeon stays inside the dungeon. However, since Satsuki witnessed everything, Akoma decides to play it by the book this time. He announces he will keep the criminal under strict observation. He instructs Satsuki to exit the portal and contact the ministry immediately. Understanding the gravity of the situation, she agrees without hesitation. Since monsters never respawn in a cleared dungeon, he knows it is safe to send her back alone. While Kao lies broken and bleeding, Akoma watches him like a hawk. The villain gasps for breath, finally admitting his fatal mistake. He judged Akoma solely by his low level. Yet, through the pain, he realizes the truth. This boy possesses the battle experience of a veteran war god, leaving Kao to wonder who or what Akoma really is. Later, the dust settles. Akoma and Satsuki relax at a cafe, blending in with the crowd. Suddenly, Akoma's phone buzzes with breaking news. The notorious serial hunter-killer has been arrested. He glances at the screen, a satisfied look in his eyes. The ministry successfully took Kao into custody. Satsuki notes with surprise that the agents asked zero questions. Akoma explains the harsh reality. Crimes inside portals are nearly impossible to prove, so the ministry rarely investigates unless the culprit is handed to them on a silver platter. The chaos unleashed by the portals has fundamentally rewritten the rules of society. To maintain order, the government monopolized key industries as a contingency plan, unintentionally driving down the national crime rate. But this stability came at a cruel price. Poverty skyrocketed, and the state offered no lifeline to those sinking into the abyss. Satsuki sighs, admitting that while she knew the dungeons were lawless zones, she never expected to come face to face with a serial killer. Akoma asks if fear has taken root in her heart. He warns her coldly, if she remains a hunter, these nightmares will become her daily reality. He studies her expression, realizing just how heavy the burden is on her shoulders right now. Softening his tone, he reminds her that there is no shame in walking away. There are plenty of other ways to live if she wants to hang up her weapon. Satsuki clutches her cup, her hands trembling slightly. She admits she would be a liar if she said she wasn't terrified, but she thanks Akoma deeply for saving her. She explains that in the heat of battle, she finally felt like a true comrade. It is a feeling she treasures. Despite the danger, she declares she wants to stay by his side and grow stronger. A genuine smile breaks across her face. Akoma responds with a rare warmth, extending his hand. If that is her resolve, then he will count on her from now on. Satsuki nods beaming, and they seal the partnership with a handshake. Akoma thinks to himself that she really is a genuinely pleasant person. Internally, however, Satsuki reflects on her own weakness. She knows she is naive, slow to adapt, and has never been the type to proactively save others. She realizes this is exactly why Away despised her in the past. To be honest, she hates that helpless side of herself too. But now, she believes she can evolve into a better, stronger version of herself. Memories of their battle flash through her mind. Even knowing her flaws, she looks at Akoma and asks to keep hunting alongside him. Akoma gives a slight, almost imperceptible smile. Once again, the thought crosses his mind. She is a good soul. However, the atmosphere shifts. While Satsuki radiates pure joy, Akoma starts feeling awkward. She is far more talkative than he ever anticipated. Suddenly, two strangers nearby glance in their direction, whispering excitedly. One woman points her phone at them, asking if they are the legendary duo everyone is discussing. The ones who crushed a boss monster in a single day and captured the killer. Akoma looks around and realizes with a start that the cafe has suddenly become packed with eyes, fixated on them. Tsunemiya steps forward, grinning. He informs them that they have become instant celebrities within the guild. He taps on his phone, explaining that while their names are still a mystery, the internet is blowing up. Every blog and video site is dissecting their battle. He shows them the screen. It displays footage of the mysterious new hunter, but interestingly, the full details of their identity remain hidden from the public eye. Utsunomiya didn't need to name names. The heavy atmosphere spoke for itself. Everyone in the room understood the hint, their eyes locking onto the duo with a mix of awe and burning curiosity. He pointed a finger straight at Akoma and Satsuki, proclaiming a prophecy. He knew without a shadow of a doubt that these two were destined for legendary fame. A declaration so intense it forced them to take a step back. His voice boomed with determination. He wasn't going anywhere. He declared he would remain rooted to that very spot until they agreed to join his cause. Suddenly, a sharp voice cut through the tension. Aoi arrived on the scene, loudly announcing her presence and flaunting her status with the Thunder Knights. She beamed a fake smile at Satsuki, claiming she had searched the entire city just to find her. She snatched the girl's hands, pouring out a honeyed apology. She admitted she had been too harsh just days ago, playing the victim card to perfection. Aoi spun a tale of reflection and regret, insisting she needed Satsuki back. After all, they were friends, and surely the way things ended had hurt them both equally. The fake smile returned to Aoi's face as she pivoted to business. She shamelessly asked exactly how much cash Satsuki had raked in from the raid. She pressed on about the undeveloped portal, noting with a greedy glint in her eye that Satsuki must have leveled up significantly. She opened her mouth to say she was counting on Satsuki's help, but Satsuki shut her down instantly. Turning to Akoma, the mage suggested they leave before the gathering crowd became a problem, and he nodded in silent agreement. Aoi and Utsunomiya scrambled to block their path, begging them to stay. But the duo was unstoppable, brushing past the desperate recruiters and walking straight toward a waiting car. As they created distance, Akoma glanced at his partner. He asked if that girl wasn't supposed to be her friend, questioning if she was truly okay with walking away like this. Satsuki's voice dropped to absolute zero. That girl was no friend of hers. She quickly shifted the topic, pointing out the insane number of views racking up on the screen. The phone displayed a viral sensation, a video with millions of views featuring a novice hunter standing his ground against a ruthless killer. Satsuki explained the dark reality of their world. People flocked to film inside portals, driven by a hungry audience addicted to life or death content. But Akoma shook his head, calling the practice reckless. Filming for profit put lives at risk. Satsuki blinked in surprise, asking if she should unsubscribe from the channels she followed. A nearby phone chimed with a notification. Someone had just hit 1 million views in a single month. Meanwhile, Hosa stared at the news feed, her eyes narrowing. The headlines were dominated by the mysterious novice hunter who had taken down a serial killer. Jealousy flared within her. She complained bitterly that his video had crushed her latest upload in numbers. Her knight explained the hard truth. Violence and viral moments drew the biggest crowds. Determination hardened into envy. Hosa decided right then that she would manufacture her own viral hit. She refused to accept that a nobody hunter deserved this level of fame for clearing a portal. Sitting amongst her knights, she let her disdain flow freely. declaring her absolute hatred for the rising star. The scene shifts to a quieter moment. Akoma and Satsuki sat at an indoor table, the tension of the streets replaced by strategy. She looked at the weapon data, asking if this incredible gear was really meant for her. Akoma confirmed it with a nod. He explained the logic of the hunt. It was far more efficient to face powerful monsters and evolve quickly than to waste time grinding through weaklings. He emphasized the golden rule of their build. Since enchanters had naturally low attack stats, she needed a high-tier, expensive weapon to maximize her damage output. With the gear decided, Satsuki tried to refuse, humbled by his generosity. She insisted he didn't need to work this hard just to arm her, apologizing for being a burden. But Akoma cut her off. The word partner hit her. Akoma watched her, reflecting on her innocence. He vowed internally to protect her from being manipulated again. Satsuki, he revealed his ace in the hole as he special location. Akoma possessed rumors. Furthermore, he chuckled, a sound that held a dark edge. There would be zero competition. They could take their sweet time and strip the dungeon bare. Satsuki watched him, noticing the peculiar way he laughed. Moments later, thick mist swallowed Akoma. To her, he looked like he barked an order to his partner. He needed magical cover fire. Satsuki responded instantly, chanting an incantation that caused a brilliant magic circle to flare to life beneath them. The monster struck, but Akoma was faster. He vaulted over the skeleton, dodging the lethal blow with acrobatic grace. A split second later, a shadow ball summoned by Satsuki slammed into the undead foe. Akoma watched the system interface flash, 240 experience points gained. The skeleton. Satsuki pointed out that Satsuki's jaw. Skeptical, she questioned the price tag, but Akoma cut straight to the facts. Weapons of this caliber were rare finds. Even without flashy magical effects, raw quality commanded a fortune. Curious, she pressed him about their ultimate target. Akoma didn't hesitate. They needed 3 million yen to secure a high-tier weapon, one durable enough to survive the battles ahead. 3 million, Satsuki gasped, overwhelmed by the staggering figure. But Akoma remained practical. Finding a rare portal teeming with easy loot was a once-in-a-lifetime miracle. They had to milk it for everything it was worth. Further, he laid out the plan. For the next 3 days, they would run a relentless cycle of exploration and extraction, clearing the dungeon piece by piece. Doing the mental math, Satsuki froze. That averaged out to a cool 1 million yen in profit every single day. It was an astronomical sum. Akoma signaled for them to investigate. Creeping forward, they spotted a duo ahead, a heavily armored knight and a girl named Hasha, standing off against a menacing mummy. With a roar, the knight charged. The knight, doubling as her production manager, gave the thumbs up. The recording was live. It was showtime. Hasha posed. The monster crumbled to dust. Hasha immediately pivoted, flashing a dazzling, practiced smile directly at the camera lens. In her streamer voice, shamelessly, she boasted about slaying the beast with a single strike, laughing that clearing this dungeon might be easier than she anticipated. Watching from the shadows, Akoma and Satsuki realized the truth. She was a portal streamer. Satsuki's eyes lit up with recognition. She knew Hasha Seiji and had even watched her channel a few times. Satsuki recalled Akoma's. As Satsuki dwelt, her gaze locked onto Akoma and Satsuki standing at the top of the stairs, right in the background of her shot. She lashed out and Akoma didn't back down. Hasha scoffed, retorting that it was all part of the desperate to salvage the. Hasha groaned in frustration, turning her nose up. Akoma offered a he clarified. Hasha waved her hand. Akoma could. It was all about. Akoma internally analyzed. Hasha dreamed aloud of her smile. Akoma didn't flinch. He warned that portals of this rank were lethal death traps and suggested she take her celebrity roleplay somewhere safe. He added a final grim truth. If she didn't treat this seriously, she would regret at the moment her life actually depended on her skills. Hasha stood silent, her eyes burning. Finally, she exploded. Not only had he ruined her footage, but now this nobody was lecturing and mocking her. Satsuki tried to intervene, insisting he didn't mean to be harsh. Akoma shrugged indifferently. He was merely offering friendly advice. The manager rushed in, but then a wicked idea formed. She ordered the manager to start the camera rolling again, catching him off guard. Stepping into Akoma's personal space, she sneered. Akoma, was it? She mocked his confidence, challenging the skills backing up his big mouth. She threw down the gauntlet, a competition. They would race to gather demon stones. If she won, he would swallow his pride, take back every word, and beg for forgiveness. And the best part, she was going to film the entire humiliation and upload it for the world to see. Akoma noted her final insult. She promised to put a tiny blur over his face, framing the video as a pro streamer destroys random hater special. Hasha threw down the gauntlet, promising that if he emerged victorious, she would grant him absolutely any request he desired. Akoma accepted the wager without hesitation, causing Satsuki to cry out in shock. Hasha laughed, declaring the deal sealed. She would meet him at the portal entrance in exactly 3 hours. She flashed a confident smile, leaving him with a sharp warning not to even think about running away. The dungeon passage stretched. Imagine that was exactly, but above the money. Akoma and Satsuki, a system undead types were sluggish. Akoma explained that the most efficient strategy was to manipulate their movements with reverse gravity. With the monster suspended and helpless, he finished it off using his gravity amplification ability. The creature shattered in Satsuki. Akoma explained his reasoning. He refused to let her broadcast a video of him losing. He would win, and his condition would be to ban her from filming dangerous stunts in portals forever. He remarked that her streaming wasn't even the immediate issue. The real problem was inventory space. It would be a nightmare to haul all this loot manually. They pushed forward toward a blinding light at the end of the corridor. They emerged suddenly, the exit slammed. He remained calm, explaining that portals often hide traps and guardians. While dangerous, these rare encounters were the only way to secure truly legendary items. The entity with the burning eyes spoke, demanding they prove their wisdom. It declared the stakes were lethal. It vowed to claim the lives of anyone who failed to answer at least 3 questions correctly. Satsuki trembled. She panicked, but the guardian, it asked for the exact experience points required to jump from level 1 to 10. Akoma answered instantly, the numbers rolling off his tongue, shocking Satsuki. Correct. Thank God for his past life's obsession with data. The 19th question asked about a 3-headed, 4-legged beast. Akoma promptly identified it as the frightening doll. Bored, he asked if it really intended to keep going, reminding the Sphinx of its own rule. It wouldn't stop until he failed. Watching the visibly agitated by his perfection, the creature shouted the 20th question. It described a monster leaving a green slime trail. Akoma smirked. That was a trick question. No such portal monster exists, he declared. Green slime is an artificial product of alchemy. He refused to fall. The dungeon began to rumble, stones falling from the ceiling as the creature expressed its utter astonishment at Akoma. The sealed door groaned open. Satsuki, Akoma's eyes. He grabbed the ring. Satsuki gasped, unable to comprehend the value. Akoma admitted even he hadn't expected a jackpot like this from a simple trap. He wondered if this overscaled reward was a bonus for his perfect score. Recalling the frustrated face of the Sphinx, Satsuki but Akoma grinned. With this storage ring, they didn't need to carry bags. They could loot everything and still make the deadline, with time to spare. Akoma smirked. Since a skeletal warrior lunged, Satsuki didn't idle. Hosa analyzed the battlefield with a sharp gaze. The mummies were sluggish, perfect targets for her gravity manipulation. She crushed them under immense pressure, noting they were excellent sources for draining mana. Akoma checked. It was incredible. He tossed a glance at Satsuki. The new gear was a game changer. They had already harvested 6 demon stones, more than enough to win the bet. But Akoma wasn't satisfied with just winning. They were here to make a fortune, and he intended to bleed this dungeon dry. Let's wipe out every undead. She wiped sweat from her tank grimaced. But he quickly tried. Desperation crept in. Suddenly, her pride flared. Akoma did. Hosa's jaw dropped. Her mind went. She stared at the mysterious bracelet on his wrist, realizing his ability was on another level. Akoma flashed a chilling smile. Is something wrong? Hosa stood frozen. Humiliation turned to rage. It's not over yet, she shrieked, ordering her manager to follow as she stomped away. Satsuki watched her go, asking why Akoma had to be so brutal. I'm just giving her a little motivation, he replied calmly. His eyes Satsuki. Akoma shook his head. A hunter is always, he predicted a grim. Meanwhile, Hosen, the reality sank in. Her teammate we save mana for the fight, not the retreat. She snapped. She refused to yield. She wouldn't let Akoma's words stand. She took this life seriously. 8 years ago, the world was darker. A young Hosa screamed. Adrenaline spiked. She grabbed the boy's hand and ran, fleeing the nightmare that had just consumed her family. Survivors huddled in the darkness, watching that back in the present. It wasn't just vanity. She knew she wasn't a legend yet, but she wanted to offer hope, to show the world that even the broken could stand tall. Her resolve hardened into steel. She wouldn't let anyone question her conviction. She would force Akoma to eat his words. This footage is garbage, she told her partner, her eyes scanning the darkness. We need something bigger, a boss-level threat. She sprinted toward her companion. Suddenly, she stepped out from cover. With a grin, she declared that the perfect moment for content creation had finally arrived. But the scene was far from the system interface flickered into existence, revealing a nightmare. It was the level 40 undead pharaoh, the boss of the ancient king's tomb portal. Terror seized her heart. A rank B boss monster here. Impossible. The realization hit her like a truck. This was a calamity. She had zero chance of surviving. Her companion realized, forget the video, forget the bet. He screamed, we need to run, now. Hosa agreed instantly, calculating that the massive giant couldn't squeeze through the narrow passage behind them. But then, a desperate cry pierced the air. The fallen hunter on the ground was begging for salvation. Time seemed to slow. The scene overlapped with a nightmare from her past. Her helpless self facing a brutal orc, and the memory of Mrs. Cohen flashing before her eyes. Clarity struck like lightning. Now she understood why fate had pulled her here. Her eyes hardened with resolve. She would never turn her back on someone in need again. She sprinted not away, but forward. I'm sorry, she whispered to her companion, making her choice. Steel clashed. Suddenly, another. It was Suni. With the manager stood. Hosa's breath came, summoning his courage, but it was futile. This was the true terror. The pharaoh raised its. Suddenly, a shadow flickered. Akoma appeared from nowhere, his voice cutting through the noise. You are as reckless as always, he scolded. Boom, the pharaoh's. How she stammered. Akoma smirked. The hunter she saved had tipped him off. He had returned, predicting she would pull a stunt exactly like this. Akoma, he reminded her sternly that a faint smile played, but the reunion, with Hosa still in his arms, he engaged the beast. The creature lunged, but Akoma deflected the blow with impossible grace. He explained rapidly. From the flank, Satsuki made her move. She conjured a swirling sphere of shadows and blasted it directly into the monster's chest. I've got its attention, Satsuki shouted, successfully pulling the aggro away from Akoma. Her attack did 0 damage. Akoma grimaced. 2 injured allies to protect against a high-tier boss? He was fighting with one hand tied behind his back. The level 4. Akoma gripped his weapon. The probability of success was plummeting by the second. Yet Akoma's expression shifted from worry to excitement. Fine. I enjoy a challenge. He turned to the mage. Satsuki, replenish Hosa's mana. Now. I'll draw its fire, Akoma declared. He prepared to dance with death to buy Hosa the seconds she needed. As he moved, he analyzed Hosa's combat style. Fire magic mixed with blade work. She was a magic swordsman, using spells to cover the gaps in her swordplay. If his theory was right, she likely had a self-recovery skill hidden up her sleeve as well. That was the win condition. Let her heal while he stalled. But he had to be careful. His gravity reduction boosted his speed, but severely nerfed his striking power. Akoma became. As a level 33 hunter, Akoma knew the truth. Just dodging was pushing his limits. The gap between their levels was a chasm of death waiting to swallow him whole. Even with the danger, the wounded hunter. Akoma blurred into motion, dodging a lethal strike. He shouted the analysis. It's massive, lightning fast, and wielding for arms of destruction. The beast roared and slammed the earth. The very ground tilted under the sheer force of the impact. The pharaoh's eye. He couldn't afford a single mistake. One slip against that ability, and it was game over. Nearby, the fallen hunter questioned his own existence. His limbs felt like lead, but the sounds of battle snapped him back to reality. The war wasn't over. The monster lunged, but Akoma soared through the air with godlike agility, leaving the injured hunter stunned in disbelief. How was a human moving like that? The hunter's mind couldn't keep up, but his instinct kicked in. He had to record this. Akoma didn't just dodge. He sprinted right up the creature's massive forearm. With a flash of steel, he lunged. The camera captured every frame of the glory. This is legendary, the knight cried out. But Akoma gritted his teeth. His attacks were too shallow. The same gravity reduction keeping him fast was sapping his striking power. The level gap was despairing. Against a boss this powerful, fighting alone was a suicide mission. Yet, hope remained. A sudden surge of mana erupted as Satsuki and Hosa triggered a reverse mana drain. "That's plenty," Hosa shouted, her healing aura flaring to life. Her confidence returned with a fierce smile. "I'm back in the fight." Satsuki signaled from behind, "I've got your back." Akoma felt the shift. They had a fighting chance now. But the odds were still stacked heavily against them. A battle of attrition meant death against a high-tier boss. Akoma stared down the towering undead pharaoh. It was now or never. The monstrosity unleashed a flurry of blows, but they struck nothing but empty air. Akoma scanned the battlefield, spotting a smaller stone figure nearby. Satsuki instantly understood the play. He was cornered. She thrust out her hand. Gravity bent to her will, making the heavy statue light as a feather. She launched the stone projectile straight at the pharaoh. Akoma roared the command, "Target the mask." On it, her weapon hummed, wrapped in a blazing blue aura. She fired a sphere of dark energy that slammed into the giant. Smoke billowed and cleared, 0 damage. But the lack of a scratch told Satsuki everything she needed to know. Akoma confirmed it. That mask wasn't just decoration. It was an impenetrable shield. The face beneath was the kill zone. Hosa wasted no time, dashing into the pharaoh's blind spot like a phantom. The creature countered viciously. Hosa gritted her teeth, barely weaving through the chaos of her thrashing arms. Even with support, closing the distance was a nightmare. How on earth had Akoma survived this onslaught solo? Akoma's voice cut through the noise. "Shatter that mask with your magic. I'll lock this thing down." He revealed his trump card. His weapon possessed the rare ability to sunder absolute defenses. Hosa nodded, channeling her mana until her blade shone like a miniature sun. Could he really halt a titan like this? Ignoring the doubt, Akoma rocketed upwards, hovering directly above the beast. The pharaoh's power came from those forearms. If Akoma could jam the shoulders, the beast would be paralyzed. And a paralyzed monster was a dead monster. He unleashed his gravity field, but he didn't aim for the body. He crushed the arms down with pinpoint precision. With its shoulders pinned under immense weight, the creature couldn't generate the leverage to break free. It was a niche strategy, perfect for a multi-armed colossus like this. The giant struggled in vain against the gravity press. The stage was set. Hosa saw her opening. Focusing every ounce of power, she unleashed a devastating wave of energy. Direct hit, the energy beam slammed home, and the ancient mask exploded into dust. The horror beneath was revealed, a twisted visage of too many eyes and a grotesque, deformed maw. Akoma's eyes narrowed. There it was, the weak point. Hosa recoiled at the gruesome sight, but Akoma didn't flinch. He dove straight toward the nightmare while it was still pinned. Gravity reversed. He flipped mid-air to dodge a desperate swipe, landing with enough force to shatter the bedrock. He knew exactly what would happen next. The beast would gather its arms for one final, desperate strike, bringing its head right into the kill zone. His eyes narrowed. He had found it, the monster's fatal flaw. "This ends now," he roared, launching the final strike to close the curtain on this battle. In that split second, energy surged. Skill activated, meteor drop. The attack crashed down like a falling star, obliterating the pharaoh's skull in a single hit. A triumphant smile crossed Akoma's face as he gripped the golden ring. The sweet sound of the system chimed. The boss was dead, and he had leveled up. While the dust settled, Hasha rushed to aid the fallen warrior on the floor, while their companion could only watch in shock. Suddenly, a mysterious light shimmered from the monster's corpse. Satsuki's eyes went wide. She spotted something glittering right next to Akoma. She waved him over urgently. It was a magic weapon. One look at the description revealed power far beyond the ordinary. Without hesitation, Akoma handed the weapon to Satsuki. "It's perfect for you," he said. "Now we won't need to waste gold buying one." Satsuki blinked, stunned. "Wait, can I really keep this?" He looked at her seriously. "You helped me get my weapon. It's only fair." He glanced back. "Hasha deserves a share of the rewards, too." Hasha shook her head, her voice trembling with gratitude. "Don't worry about me," she said. "You saved our lives. That is reward enough." She tried to hand over the item and the demon stone, but hesitated. "Actually, can I ask for one thing?" she whispered. "Can we cancel the bet?" Akoma smirked. "You won that bet, fair and square." His expression softened. "You're a respectable hunter, Hasha. I take back every doubt I had about you." Hasha froze, the words sinking in. A warm atmosphere filled the room as Akoma and Satsuki exchanged a knowing smile. But the moment didn't last. "You should quit streaming," Akoma said bluntly. "Focus on becoming a real hunter." Satsuki gasped, indignant at his harshness. The armored warrior intervened, shaking his head. "You don't understand. It's impossible for her to survive just by hunting." Akoma frowned, ready to argue, but the truth came out. The warrior's voice broke. "Her father died. Her mother is injured. She is the sole provider for 5 younger siblings. She carries the weight of her entire family." Hasha tried to hush him, desperate to hide her struggle, but the warrior refused to be silenced, praising her endless hard work and sacrifice. Silence fell over the group. Akoma lowered his head. "I apologize," he said sincerely. "I judged you without knowing the war you were fighting." Hasha turned away, hiding her face. "I enjoy what I do," she murmured. "Please, don't misunderstand my choices." She looked up, determination in her eyes. "Portals terrify people. My goal is to make them smile, to show them we can win." She pulled up her stream, showing the joy she brought to her viewers. Akoma's gaze softened into a genuine smile. "Then I will support you." Hasha's eyes widened. She fell silent, a deep blush spreading across her cheeks. Later, the team Akoma, Satsuki, and Hasha stood before 2 uniformed officials holding clipboards. The scene shifted. Hasha's heart raced as she asked about her camera. It was expensive, high-tech, and her lifeline. "Please tell me it isn't broken," she prayed. One of the warriors inspected the device. "It's fully functional," he confirmed. Hasha let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Still, the warrior grumbled. "We almost died in there, and for what? Barely any demon stones to show for it." Hasha bit her lip. She thought about the boss monster's stone, but shook the thought away. "I won't accept charity out of pity," she told herself firmly. She turned back to the officials, desperate. "Did the camera catch anything? Anything at all? Please, I need good footage." The official turned the screen. There it was. Crystal clear footage of Akoma, moving like a god of war. Later, at the Marima branch of the Hunters Guild, Akoma sat quietly with a book, but Satsuki was glued to her phone. "Akoma, you have to see this," she cried out, waving him over. Akoma sighed, uninterested. "If you want information, ask an expert. Don't trust random videos." She shoved the phone in his face. The headline screamed, "The rumored Supreme Hunter appears," and the face on the screen was his. It was Hasha's footage. The video of Akoma facing the monster had exploded online, racking up views at a terrifying speed. The comments section was on fire. "Look at that speed. He faced that beast without flinching." Reading the praise, a faint smile touched Akoma's lips. He realized the strain. Meanwhile, she threw her hands up. Her heart skipped a beat. She answered quickly, remembering they had exchanged numbers for information sharing. But her excitement, Hasha slumped, guilt. He sighed. "I just wanted to say, a mischievous idea." Click. Hasha stared at her phone. Did he just hang up? Satsuki blinked. Was she saying something? Akoma ignored them both, walking away. But his mind was elsewhere. He needed an item of legend, an artifact that once seemed impossible to reach, the Ring of Wisdom. He clenched his fist. A heartbeat later, the receptionist pointed to the digital screen, confirming the impossible. Akoma had hit level 36, proving he finally possessed the necessary experience. Just like that, our protagonist. Moments later, Akoma and Satsuki stepped away from the administration desk. leaving the buzz of the lobby behind them. She gave. Meanwhile, the receptionist remained frozen at the desk, mind reeling. His advancement wasn't just fast, it was unprecedented, a speed never before witnessed in history. Akoma knew this wasn't luck. It was the result of cold calculation and experience. He explained that the only way to power level was to slaughter high-level monsters. Satsuki's eyes lit up with determination. She acknowledged him as one of the strongest rank C hunters and swore to work until she stood by his side. But Akoma wasn't. Concern washed over. She reminded him of the. Finally, Akoma revealed his true hand. He wasn't just grinding for glory. He had a specific target locked in his sights. To claim it, he explained that the. Stunned, Satsuki asked how he could possibly know the drop table of an undefeated boss. She realized this connected to the secrets he had shared before, and Akoma confirmed her suspicions. He theorized that the ring. Satsuki stood there. He revealed that in his. Akoma recalled how specialists had once used it to decode the portals. The path would be grueling, but his resolve was ironclad. He would seize it this time. He stated firmly that this item was something he desired for his own agenda. However, Satsuki still, reality lit, but Akoma just smiled. The goal was. Akoma didn't. Next, Satsuki victory flowed through. She knew these bosses. He explained their movement path. Furthermore, he flashed the map on his phone, proving his point. In record time, they had already conquered 5 portals above level 30. Back at the guild reception, they would undergo. Suddenly, a shadow fell over them. A hulking man named Mr. Yukami stomped forward, indignation burning in his eyes as he questioned if a rookie was really reaching for rank B. Akoma didn't. Then, his eyes landed on the emblem on the man's chest. It was the mark of an elite hunters who signed exclusive contracts with the guild. Yukami began barking at the receptionist. These contract hunters were no joke. Their duties extended into actual portal management. They responded to with immense influence over the guild. Yukami found it absolutely absurd that a nobody like Akoma was on the verge of rank B. But the receptionist stood firm. She informed the giant that Akoma was already approaching level 40. Backed by an extensive record of clearing mid-level dungeons, Yukami froze. As their gazes locked, cold sweat formed. One look at them. Yukami stepped into Akoma's. The young hunter kept his. But giving up wasn't an option. The system rules were absolute. He could only apply for promotion within his home city's jurisdiction. Memories of Satsuki's unwavering support flashed through his mind. He owed her too much to retreat now. His resolve hardened like steel. Turning squarely to face the veteran hunter leaned in. His aggression spiked. The guild hall fell silent. Akoma cut through the. Caught off guard, Yukami blinked in confusion. He couldn't grasp the angle, snapping back to ask what kind of nonsense the kid was spouting. Akoma didn't flinch. With the trap sprung, Akoma drove his point home. He declared that he had met every single criteria. Cornered by desperate to save, Akoma countered instantly. The receptionist nodded. Satsuki. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as they watched Yukami stand there, speechless. The veteran realized the kid had made a bold move, publicly stripping him of his authority. Humiliation burned. He announced that Akoma would regret this challenge. Turning to the receptionist, he demanded the boy's specs. The answer came back, level 38, gravity user. Yukami paused. He grilled the woman about the class, admitting he'd never heard of a gravity user before. Could it be a hidden rare class? The veteran analyzed. Yukami's harsh in his judgment. Then came the trap. The scene shifted to the. Yukami laid out the terms again. The promotion hung in the balance. Akoma had to prove his combat prowess in a real fight to pass. Failure meant rejection. In the stands, whispers turned dark. Spectators recalled Yukami's brutal history. He didn't just spar. He nearly killed his opponents. The crowd braced for bloodshed. Everyone agreed this situation wouldn't end well. For Akoma, Yukami was notorious for using these tests to vent his rage. Satsuki watched with bated breath, fear for her companion written all over her face. Yukami stared daggers at the boy. The memory of his earlier public humiliation fueled a burning desire for violence. He sized up the gap. The kid was only level 38. Yukami, however, stood tall at level 47. The difference was massive. Convinced he was facing a fragile mage, Yukami sneered internally. The kid must have leached experience from a powerful carry to get this far. He puffed out his chest, declaring his class, Beast Warrior. His physical stats were naturally superior, built for crushing weaker opponents. A twisted smile crept onto his face. He wouldn't just win, he would crush the boy so thoroughly that Akoma would never dare call himself a hunter again. While the vet Yukami watched, Akoma knew he had to. He poured 25. It wasn't his. Yukami laughed, dripping with sarcasm. Akoma's face remained with a sneer of absolute arrogance. Yukami plotted to assert his dominance in front of the entire crowd. His lips curled into a sin. Yukami brandished. He stood motionless in the center. Yukami laughed, but the instant Yukami scoffed in turn. Metal clashed against metal as he barely blocked the strike, his mind racing. How could a rookie move with such elite-level agility? A split second. Desperately, Yukami tried to convince himself it was just a fluke, a lucky shot. Gritting his teeth, he swung his weapon in a fierce counterattack. But Akoma was already airborne. Yukami looked up, gripping his blade tight, only to see his opponent hovering effortlessly above him. Suddenly, Yukami's footing betrayed him. He staggered, realizing with horror that his own center of gravity had been stolen. Seizing the opening, Akoma moved like a phantom propelled by pure energy. A precise, devastating kick slammed into Yukami's face, drawing immediate blood. Yukami coughed, but it was useless. High above in the VIP, the spectators began to murmur among themselves. Surely, this was just a formality. They speculated that Yukami must be holding back since he wasn't using skills. But then, Akoma landed a heavy blow that forced the veteran hunter to retreat. Yukami panted, so whispers of the crowd, the young hunter, the gravity user class is supreme, Akoma declared coldly. It allows physical abilities to shatter normal limits, far surpassing any other class. He explained that Akoma's gaze, Akoma tapped, refined combat without hesitation. Yukami's eyes, for a heartbeat, Yukami blinked, and his target was gone. Where? He looked down, but Akoma was already upside down in the air above him. Before Yukami could react, the boy materialized behind him, cold steel pressed against his back. I reduced gravity. The arena erupted. The hunter hadn't just lost, he hadn't stood a ghost of a chance against Akoma. Cheers for the new victor shook the stadium. Satsuki beamed, her denial consumed. Akoma ignored the tantrum. A sinister red aura exploded around Yukami. He roared like a beast, eyes glowing crimson as he broke his vow and activated a lethal claw skill. He lunged with blind. Akoma touched the wound. Yukami laughed maniacally, finding the situation hilarious. You fool, Yukami spat. My weapon was just a distraction to hide my real killer move. And you fell for it, even if you managed to block a little. Chaos broke out in the stands. The crowd shouted in outrage. He attacked after the match ended. That's cheating. He swore he wouldn't use skills. Others screamed. The honor of the duel had been shattered by a sore loser. Even as the crowd jeers him, Yukami trembles with pure fury. Akoma stands calm amidst the swirling energy, simply asking if the promotion test is still ongoing. Yukami grinds his teeth, consumed by a burning rage. He swears an internal oath right then and there. He will not let Akoma mock him. He vows to turn this boy's life into a living hell. Yet, Akoma innocently asks if his performance proved his worth. Meanwhile, Yukami, with cold determination, murmurs of the evaluator sneer. He lies, he insists. Finally, outrage spreads. Hearing the dissent, another spectator warns. Akoma's the newcomer accused. Yukami dismisses him as a nobody and tells him to shut up. But Utsunomiya ignores the insult, assuring Akoma he will expose this corruption to the world. Surprisingly, Akoma rejects the help cold. He questions why Utsunomiya uses the term best friend and asks what his true motive is. Satsuki, she wonders why he is acting this way when he desperately needs Yukami to acknowledge his strength. Akoma reveals, he reflects, but he concludes it is useless to regret it now. Defeating a corrupt man changes nothing. Suddenly, a new presence approaches. Yukami freezes. He recognizes Deputy Guild Master Serizawa. He stammers, asking why the superior is here. Serizawa, his eyes lock on. Yukami scoffs. Akoma watches, ending the test. As Serizawa walks away, Akoma sighs, scratching his head. He replies that they will simply have to find another way. As the elevator rises to the 13th floor, Serizawa asks again if such violence was truly needed for an evaluation. Yukami explains that he fought to show the harsh reality to an arrogant rookie seeking a promotion. The deputy master, once seated in the private office, Yukami asks what the real topic of discussion is. He explains that managing portals of that level is a gold mine, allowing hunters to grow and harvest valuable demon stones. He slides a Yukami looks at Serizawa, even the guild. He adds that the only reason it remains open is because Yukami himself previously declared the place safe. He needs Yukami, but Serizawa cuts him off mid-sentence. He covers his face, his voice dropping dangerously low. He is not finished yet. Soon after, Yukami snatched the report, sneering that the portal was fine before tossing the paper aside like trash. Rizzo hurried to pick it up, stammering that he hadn't even analyzed the data yet. But the evaluator crushed the papers under his boot, scoffing at what those worthless numbers could possibly tell him. With a cocky grin, he declared that his specialist intuition was absolute. He guaranteed the portal was safe, boasting he could solo clear it instantly if anything actually went wrong. He slammed his hand on the surface, barking that they couldn't afford accidents. After all, nobody truly understood the cause of these portal disasters anyway. Rizzo remained silent, swallowing his retort. He knew their only duty was protecting the area. But deep inside the gate, a sleeping beast snapped its eyes open. Meanwhile, Akoma sighed. This entire situation was becoming a massive headache. He reflected on Hunter Yukami's petty behavior. Promotions were locked to their specific branch, meaning there was no way to bypass that corrupt hunter to climb the ranks. He knew he needed the status of a rank B hunter to access the Library of Illusions. And while Satsuki could attempt the test elsewhere, she didn't have the required level for a promotion yet. His eyes narrowed. They needed to find another solution, and fast. Suddenly, Hosha burst onto the scene. She got straight to the point, asking if that guild hunter was the one blocking his path. The young streamer flashed her phone screen. One of her fans had secretly recorded the confrontation between Akoma and Yukami. She suggested uploading it immediately with a clickbait title, Guild Corruption. Yukami's abuse of power. She was certain her 120,000 subscribers would riot. At the injustice, Akoma gave her a skeptical look. He asked if she was just doing this for clout. The girl shook her head vigorously. She declared she only wanted to repay him for saving her life. However, she smirked and admitted the extra views and profit wouldn't hurt. But the boy shut it down. He warned that portals were still too misunderstood to play games. He explained that the guild couldn't afford to lose experienced hunters right now. Public criticism wouldn't change the mind of a man like Yukami. Worse, it would only paint a target on her back. Hearing this, Satsuki's expression shifted. Hosha teased, asking if Akoma was worried about her safety. Satsuki cut in, bluntly asking if the streamer had feelings for him. Hosha gasped in shock. She stammered that Akoma was full of secrets and acted way too superior. She would never fall for someone so annoying, even if he was handsome. She clarified she only cared because he was her savior. As an online celebrity, a dating scandal was the last thing she needed. Satsuki narrowed her eyes, asking why Hosha was staring so intensely, which the girl quickly denied. Suddenly, a notification chimed, drawing everyone's attention. Satsuki read the emergency alert. A rank B monster incident had erupted in Tokyo. Panic laced her voice as she asked what was happening. Hosha pointed at the screen while Akoma analyzed the data. The incident was on Kitahana Avenue. It was an overflow from the Temple of Beasts. He explained that overflows happen when monsters invade reality. The only way to seal the breach was to hunt down the boss monster. But something was wrong. This event was strange. In his previous life, this disaster never occurred in the Morimo ward. He questioned if this was just a coincidence. Memories of his past flooded back. He wondered if his presence was causing the timeline to diverge from the future he knew. Hosha couldn't believe it. A supposedly controlled portal had malfunctioned. She demanded to know how the guild failed to predict this despite all their analysis. The young woman bit her lip. She admitted she had never entered a rank B portal and lacked the power to make a difference. But a memory of her father pleading for help flashed in her mind. Civilians were dying. Declaring her resolve, She rushed toward the danger zone. Akoma frowned. A defective rank B portal was a wild card. The disaster energy could trigger a catastrophic chain reaction. Back at the incident site, Ukami stood amidst the burning rubble. A massive shadow loomed before him. The beast stepped into the light. It was a level 34 werewolf. The hunter launched himself into the air, weapon raised high. He charged forward, screaming that nothing could stand in his way. But panic flickered in his eyes. The situation was critical, and the portal was too close to the city center. His reputation hung by a thread. Onlookers cheered, praising the hunter for seemingly pushing back the monster with a single strike. But Ukami turned to them, sweat pouring down his face. He demanded to know if anyone stronger was coming. Admitting he couldn't handle this with low-rank support, the support team shook their heads. Rank B hunters were rare. Backup had been called, but there was no telling when they would arrive. Akoma watched from a distance. If this disaster spiraled, Ukami was finished. But the regressor smiled. He had cleared this exact dungeon in the past. He knew exactly what they were facing. The boss monster was a level. He scoffed at the phantom fox, convinced it was nothing more than trash mob fodder. His plan was simple: slaughter the boss, frame Surizawa for any mishaps, and emerge as the glorious hero of Murayama City. The hunter raised his voice, declaring the extermination had officially begun. But before the words left his lips, a catastrophic explosion rocked the ground beneath them. Screams of pure terror erupted from the civilians nearby. From the smoke, a colossal paw slammed into the earth. Someone stammered, asking if this was truly the boss. Then, the nightmare revealed itself, a titan with multiple fox heads, wreathed in hellfire. The two rookies froze in horror. This monstrosity was nowhere in the portal's briefing data. The system window flashed red. It wasn't a phantom, it was a level 55 summoner fox. The boys trembled, staring at the grotesque abomination towering over them. The boss of the Temple of Beasts had undergone a dungeon evolution. It had warped its form, skyrocketed its level, and unlocked devastating new skills. This was no longer a simple hunt. The mana buildup within the unstable portals had triggered a disaster, birthing an entirely new entity of destruction. Ukami's face went pale. He realized the boss had mutated, turning a simple raid into a catastrophe on top of the existing dungeon overflow. Utsunomiya stared at the terrifying level tag level 55. His voice cracked as he identified the summoner fox. How are we supposed to fight a monster with that kind of power? Fear took over. The two rookies agreed instantly they had to retreat, regroup, and pray for high-ranking reinforcements. You spineless cowards, Ukami spat at them. He wasn't about to let a retreat stain his perfect record after he fought so hard to keep this. Portal open. He puffed out his chest, reminding them of his status. I am a rank B hunter. I have survived hellholes far worse than this. A twisted, scheming light flashed in his eyes. He proposed a strategy. The rookies would distract the beast, buying him time to land the lethal blow. The young men recoiled. That's reckless, they shouted. We wouldn't last 10 seconds as bait against a monster like that. Ukami's patience snapped at their defiance. Fine, he sneered, a cruel grin spreading across his face. If you won't volunteer, I'll give you a little incentive. He activated his skill, Berserk. A beam of sinister red energy shot from his palm, slamming directly into the terrified rookies. The red aura constricted around them like a snake. The boys collapsed, clutching their heads as agonizing pain shattered their minds. The Berserk spell, a dark art of the Beast Warrior class. It forcefully spikes the target's attack power while completely obliterating their reasoning, turning them into mindless killing machines. The hunter chuckled, admitting he used this trick often to create disposable human shields. It's been a while, he mused, but it works every time. Without a shred of mercy, he kicked one of the boys, launching him toward the beast like a ragdoll. Kill it, he commanded. His plan was set. Let the cannon fodder die to lower the beast's guard, then swoop in for the steal. His smile was sadistic and cold. Consider this a lesson, he thought. Good people don't survive in the world of hunters. Robbed of their free will, the two boys roared and charged at the titan, weapons raised, marching to their deaths as Ukami watched. Suddenly, the creature turned. On its back, a pulsating, grotesque eye opened. Its eyelids formed from writhing human hands. The monster activated the skill, Poltergeist. The eye glowed, and debris around the battlefield began to levitate in a gravity-defying storm. Okami flinched, blindsided. Telekinesis, he gasped. How does a beast type have psychic powers? Rubble rained from the sky like meteors. The boys screamed in agony, their bodies battered even as the berserk spell forced them forward. Okami clicked his tongue. Useless trash. A massive slab of concrete hurtled toward the hunter's head. Beast King smashed with a roar. He pulverized the rock with his heavy sword. But the realization hit him the monster was using high-level psychokinesis. This creature's power was in a different dimension. Panic set in. The fox monster ignored the bait and locked onto him, forcing Okami to sprint through the ruins. It shouldn't be this strong, he thought, sweat pouring down his face. The monster was closing the distance, its presence suffocating him. Okami gritted his teeth, noting its terrifying speed. He spun around, raising his greatsword in a desperate guard. The demonic eye flashed again. Another wave of telekinetic force slammed into him. He braced, the impact shuddering through his massive blade. He deflected a sec. The monster lunged. Despair washed over him. It's impossible, he thought. I can't kill this thing. But then, a cowardly idea sparked in his mind. He activated his ultimate. The monster paused. It worked. He scrambled to his feet. God, no. The monster loomed over him. The dark mist poured into him. Finally, Hosa knelt to heal an injured civilian, who watched in awe as his wounds vanished into thin air. Akoma pointed the way, ordering the man to run west where the path was clear of beasts. The survivor stammered his thanks and scrambled away, desperate to live. Hosa turned to Akoma, who stood silent, his mind racing. The hero spoke with grim urgency. They had to move now to contain the mana overflow before it was too late. The young healer nodded, sensing the weight of his words. He was right. She checked her phone. Akoma calculated the odds. He realized he had to prepare for the corrupted hunter. The veteran groaned. Grit. The attacker smiled. The woman cried out for Captain Kurokawa in terror. Okami merely laughed, remarking on how troublesome it was to put down a rank B hunter. His voice dripped with madness as he explained. This wasn't just a monster raid. It was a side effect of the great calamity itself. In his twisted eyes, the local troops and hunters were nothing but insects, utterly incapable of handling the true horror approaching. Laughing maniacally, he charged the bald captain again to finish the job. But just as the death blow fell, Akoma arrived. He manipulated the gravity field instantly. Akoma analyzed the situation in a split second. Okami was under mind control. The corrupted hunter hissed, while the captain warned Akoma to run, terrified of Okami's rank. But Akoma didn't run. He attacked with fluid, lightning-fast precision that blurred the air. His eyes went wide. The captain realized something strange. Okami was using basic, primitive attacks. Was the mind control dulling his combat instincts? The corrupted hunter roared and swung a heavy beast claw strike. Akoma dodged effortlessly. Sensing his opponent's agitation, Akoma shifted his rhythm. Now, stepping closer, but the clarity didn't. Despite the rage, he was struck down again. The mind control was too deep. Akoma readied his weapon, acknowledging that raw stats alone wouldn't be enough against a higher-level foe. There was no choice. He launched himself, hovering above. Akoma stood over the defeated hunter, chest heaving. The bald captain watched in stunned silence, realizing the boy had been holding back solely to save Okami's life. Hosa and Satsuki finally caught up, breathless and complaining about Akoma's insane speed. He apologized, but his eyes remained serious. He explained. The captain ordered. His gaze locked onto the horizon. The boss had arrived. A massive two-headed summoner fox was closing in. Satsuki and Akoma the creature. Akoma summoned his sister. His eyes narrowed. A cold sweat ran down Akoma's back. An evolved boss meant unknown abilities. They were walking into this blind. Hosa asked the question on everyone's mind. If we kill that thing, does this nightmare end? Akoma gripped his weapon tight. Yes. However, bringing this beast to its knees would be no simple task. The fox summoner unleashed its true power, calling forth a legion of level 30 phantom wolves. In a heartbeat, Akoma, Satsuki, and Hosu were surrounded by a sea of glowing eyes and bared fangs. The young woman froze. Dread washed over her as she envisioned the catastrophe of an overflow innocent slaughtered. Cities burning. High above, the beast cackled, savoring the despair and chaos it had ignited. Akoma took command. "What are you going to do?" She, with steel